Hello everyone, this is Rick and welcome to Astral Club. This is Echoes of the Future. Before we get into it, I just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the work of Astral Club, you can do so on Patreon. When you join, you get a chance to chat back and forth with myself and the other patrons. And of course, there's direct mail function, you can ask questions, and it's a great way to get some information back and forth, share your experiences. Next up, astral projection lessons. If you'd like to learn how to astral project or to improve your current methods, be glad to work with you. I've worked with folks all around the world now, and it's a lot of fun. If you want some information for both Patreon and astral projection lessons, just go to the description and you'll find the link and the emails there to get the information that you need. Okay, Echoes of the Future. You've heard me talk numerous times when I was talking to you about my time travels, that I generally hit upon a certain time period I want to go to, and then I launch myself flying faster and faster, and then usually a black hole of sorts opens up, a tunnel, if you will, and I fly down it and I lose consciousness. And when I come to, I find myself hovering above the earth. I find myself in a body of water, in a farmer's field, lots of different places, sometimes hovering over a city. When I went after trying to find Jesus in Jerusalem, I finally was able to get a place and time working all at once. But the important part that I want to note here is I black out once I start the journey. Now, I've thought about that a lot over the years. My theory is that my physical brain, and keep in mind this information that is going from the astral body through the astral cord, and it's being stored in my physical brain. The problem with that is the physical brain is inherently limited, especially the random access memory. And let's just use a computer as an example here. It's a little bit easier, I think, to get the hang of it. In your computer, you've got your hard drive with a big old amount of space on it. And then you've got your random access memory. The random access memory is all the information that you need to get a hold of on a regular basis. So it's very easy and very quick to access it. But it's also inherently much more limited than that big old hard drive of yours. In order to get some files that are buried deeply within your hard drive, you've got to have file names and you got to know where to look for them. So it's a lot more of a process, but you can store a lot more there. Look at the physical brain. We call our random access memory, just typically we refer to it as our memory because it's things that we can get to very quickly, like your phone numbers, at least before we had cell phones. Now nobody remembers their number, but typically that would be something to remember: your address, where you work, all the information that you need, usually on a daily, certainly weekly or regular basis. But then you've got all this other brain capacity, and there's a lot stored there. As a matter of fact, I personally believe, and some scientists back me up on this, that it's all stored there. I remember once I was in a very special state when I returned from my astral projection. This only happened to me once. And I was in this weird in-between state where I could literally just name a date and I'd find myself exactly in that date and time, seen through my physical eyes. I recall I was in my first grade class when I hit upon a certain day and time. I found myself there sitting exactly where I used to sit, what I was wearing, what everybody else was wearing, what the teacher was talking about. So what that tells me is it's all stored there somewhere. But ordinarily, you can't get at that information. Maybe you have a vague memory of what was going on in your first grade class, but unless you've got one of those unusual minds, those eidetic memories, where you can remember every darn thing and access it, you probably don't remember exactly where you sat or exactly what the teacher was talking about on a particular day and time, or what the weather was like. Because I remember when I was in first grade, it was shortly before they let us out for the summer. The windows were open. I could feel the warm air coming in. We're talking about I was there again. So it's stored. It's stored in that long-term memory. But normally we can't access it. And in this special state, I could. But if that's true, then perhaps when I'm traveling in time, I'm absorbing a completely enormous amount of information that there's no way that it could fit into my random access memory, which is where I typically put my astral projection experiences. Because when I wake up, I want to be able to remember them and then relate them later on to you. But imagine having thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years worth of information, stimuli, just flowing in through that astral cord within a second or two. That it would be much too much for our physical minds to possibly be aware of. You'd go insane. So what happens? My belief is it gets stored somewhere in my physical brain. And echoes of the future are the memories that I have of the future that come to me unbidden. I don't ask for them. Some of them are of national and international importance, but many of them are just of importance to me or my family. There doesn't seem to be a lot of logic or rhyme or reason. It's almost like, one little circuit somewhere gets triggered and all of a sudden, bam, it comes to me and I experience this future memory. Let me share some with you. The first one I want to talk about, and these are the ones that I recall just offhand when I was writing them down. There's a lot more, but these are the ones that came to me very quickly. On January 27th, 1986, I was at my home, quote unquote, sick from work. I had been about partying over the weekend with the guys, and I way overdid it. So I just had to call out sick. I was chilling in my bachelor pad, watching TV, kind of half paying attention because I wasn't feeling well. Everyone knows how it feels when you're hungover. You're not having fun. So I was kind of in and out, and the TV sound, all of a sudden, it became silent. It was muted. And then I saw on the TV a space shuttle taking off and then an explosion. Now that jarred me out of whatever weird funk state that I was in. And as soon as I came back to what I would call full alert, the TV noise came back on again, and it was on whatever stupid program I was watching. Now, I was a bit freaked out over all that, and I immediately started changing channels. I took a look at, I think I turned on the radio too. There was nothing. No. But I did note later on that night, as I recall, that there was some news that the Challenger space station was going to be launching the next day. I was concerned, but not unduly so. I mean, I wasn't feeling well. I was hungover. Who knows what I saw, right? I watched that launch, though, and everyone knows what happened on that day on January 28th, 1986. Those brave astronauts perished in that Challenger accident. And when I saw that bomb burst from the explosion, it caused a shock wave through me, because that is exactly what I'd seen right before I came back to full, what you might want to call, consciousness. But of course now it's on TV, it's live, and I can hear what was going on. That was quite a shocker. Let's get into one that isn't quite as groundbreaking or isn't quite as fascinating, but it was to me. I was driving on a Saturday morning to pick up some groceries. I was still on a back road, which is why I did this. I wasn't on a main road or anything. I was on a backcountry road when I heard my phone ding. So I grabbed it and, yeah, sure enough, I got a message. I punched it up while I was driving, and I know that's bad. You don't have to yell at me. And I saw there was a text from my daughter. I kind of read it real quick. The kind of reading you do when you're not supposed to be doing that reading on your phone when you're driving. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll read it more carefully when I'm back from this trip. So I went ahead and bought some groceries, and then I got back home, and I was like, hey, let's read that that text a little bit more carefully. Well, I punched up my my messages, and there was nothing there for my daughter, not today. And I figured, geez, did I hit a delete message by mistake? I didn't think I did. I mean, I just punched it up, looked at it, and then I just kind of turned off my phone. But okay, I figured I must have deleted it, so I'll talk to my daughter later on, see if it was something important about it. But as I recall, I read through it. It was just some news. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, or else I would have called. But later on that afternoon, as I recall, right around 2:00 p.m., my phone dinged. And I'll be darned if that message wasn't the exact message that I had read while I was driving that morning. Of course, I called up my daughter and I said, hey, did you send like a trial message or something this morning? And she said, no. She had just written it and sent it to me just a few minutes before. So in essence, I had read the message before she sent it. Strange. Okay, here's one. This happened back in 2020, right around COVID. I don't know about you, but I worked through COVID. I had to go into the office. I had to go out with salespeople. That's what we had to do. Anyway, I was driving into work, and it was an hour each way. And anyone who's ever done long commutes, you kind of know what I'm talking about. In the afternoon, there was a lot of traffic, so I was very much aware. However, in the morning, I'd leave very early in the morning, so there wasn't a lot of traffic, the same boring long road. The same, but half of the trip was just this boring country road that I would never even see another car. Anyway, as I was getting ready to turn onto the country road part of the trip, I just had this flash come to me where I saw a backfiring car at a gas station. I saw a man lounging in a fluorescent orange shirt, the kind of shirt that you go hunting with. I saw him lounging and smoking outside of a little local store. And I saw crows on the road eating a carcass. And even more importantly, around this extreme turn that I had to make every morning, going at usually a pretty decent speed, I saw a deer standing right in the middle of the road. Well, it was in the morning. I hadn't had any coffee. I guess I just figured, oh, that's weird. My brain's playing games. I probably didn't get enough sleep again, or maybe I did too many projections. Who knows? Until I got to the gasoline station, and there was a backfiring car. As I passed the little store, if there wasn't an orange guy standing outside smoking, well, then my name's not Rick. The crows were exactly where I'd seen them in my mind, eating some carcass on the road. Only this time I was very careful. I went very slowly around this. It's almost a hairpin turn. And rather than going my usual speed, I was creeping. And right as soon as the turn was executed was this deer standing right in the middle of the road. Wow. I missed one there. That little spot from the future saved me from wrecking my car with that deer. Unfortunately, about a year or so later, I didn't have a flash of insight, and I did hit a deer that just jumped out of the woods, kind of kamikaze suicide style, and I hit it, and it was just a real mess. But that time, I was saved. The next one. My daughter Rose had just started her physician's assistant classes. And I was just aimlessly, you know how you do sometimes, aimlessly going through my pics in my phone. when I ran across a picture that I didn't really recognize, and there it was my daughter wearing a short white coat, like a lab coat kind of thing. Well, I thought that was odd, and I said to myself, well, I'm going to ask her what that was for the next time I talk to her. And I think I talked to her, I don't know whether I talked to her that day or the next day, but I asked her, I said, I have this picture of you in this short white coat. When did I get that? She goes, I don't have a short white coat. And then she told me that you don't get a short white coat until you have successfully finished your first year, and then it's before you go on your clinical rotations. The short white coat is kind of a way for other medical people to identify that you're a student, that you're not a full-on PA. So that's why, because usually you get like a long white coat if you wear it. But these short white ones is, like I said, it's kind of shorthand for, oh, that's a student. So she wouldn't get hers until the end of her first year, and she had just started. So she couldn't believe me, and I said, well, wait a minute, I'm going to look it up. And when I went onto my phone, it wasn't there. There was no photo there of my daughter in a short white coat. Of course, now there is one, because when she got her short white coat, we make sure we took a picture, and it's that exact picture. Another interesting bit of the future for me, I was driving by my company, and we'd worked a long week, and I'd been on some sales call, and I was on my way home, and I had to drive by the company in order to be on my way home. And as I went by, instead of the usual company sign at the entrance to the driveway, there was a sign that said park. Well, I did a double take, but then I kept on driving. I was tired. I wanted to get home. So the next morning, when I went into work, I was going to ask, like, what's the deal with the park sign? But when I got there, there was no park sign. There was just the usual company name sign. So I went inside and I was like, hey, are we playing games with the signs or something? Was there a park sign out front instead of our company sign? Everybody looked at me like I had two heads, like I was nuts. Nothing more was said about it. I didn't think about it anymore. I just figured that I'd been so tired from such a long week that for some reason, instead of seeing my company name, I saw the word park. It wasn't until a number of years later, after I had gone to another company, and this company had gone out of business about a year after I left it, which is why I left it. I saw that coming. Anyway, I'm driving by on my way home again, and sure enough, there's that sign, park. And in small letters underneath it, it said corporation. It turns out this company called Park Corporation had bought the old location of my company. And so there you go again. I'd seen a vision of what would be there a few years in the future. Okay, this is something that's a little bit more of interest to, people who were in the military and certainly U.S. residents in the Utah area. But back in 1983, I had had a birthday celebration. And after I was done, the party was over, whatever, I grabbed my newspaper. I hadn't had a chance to read it at all. And once again, I was kind of tired. There'd been some drinking going on and what have you. And I opened the paper and I saw there was news of a B-52 crash that killed the crew. I don't recall. I put the paper down. I remember that. And then I went ahead and I called one of my friends that had been at the party. And I said, hey, did you hear about this bird that we dropped somewhere in the mountains of southern Utah? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, there was like a B-52 that crashed into southern Utah mountains. The crew died. He goes, no, I haven't heard anything about that. And we talked a little bit more and then we hung up. I didn't know what else to do. Actually, I think I just went ahead and went for a nap or something. Or maybe I went to bed. I forget the time that was going on here. It's been a long time ago now, 1983. At any rate, I know the next morning when I grabbed the paper again, because I had just thrown it on the floor, I think, I picked it up and there was just an article about the economy and how it was struggling and that it might be ready to turn the corner and get better again. And I was like, what the heck is this all about? Well, I went ahead and just went and did there and went to school and what have you. And then I got the news because one of my friends called me. I think it was actually the friend that I'd called the day before. He goes, Rick, you're not going to believe this, but a B-52 was on its way for maneuvers. They were doing an exercise of some sort at Nellis Air Force Base. And there was two B-52s, and they got stuck with really bad weather, and one of them crashed into a southern Utah mountain, killing all 7 of the crew. I mean, I was lightning struck when I heard that. But, it was just for me, it was more par for the course. So those are the echoes of the future that I've had that I just recall offhand. I know there's been more. But you see, there's some that are tragedies. There's some that's quite banal, really. Text here, not a text. Pick here, not a pick. So there doesn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason as to why these glimpses of the future are coming to me without any conscious effort on my part. Anyway, it's a mystery, and perhaps it bears out my theory on why I black out and what really is going on. Perhaps not. Who knows? Maybe all of this is just some weird coincidence. Who knows? At any rate, if you found this interesting, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. And any comments and questions? Have you had any flashes of the future? If so, why don't you tell us a little bit about it? I'd be happy to hear about it. At any rate, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.